This video might be one of the creepiest on the channel. The war ended long ago, but its deadly traces are still hidden right under our feet. In this episode, abandoned military bases, sunken equipment, secret weapons depots, and unexploded bombs that have been lying in the ground for decades. Some of these discoveries look as if they were hidden on purpose so that no one would ever find them. But they did. And what people saw is truly terrifying. These are the most unbelievable military finds that shocked the world. Enjoy watching. Frozen in the nightmare of 1916, these ruined forest trenches were found filled with rusty equipment. Can you now imagine one of the bloodiest battles of the First World War? It is known that 8,400 Canadians fought on that front, and their corps suffered colossal losses. This chain is called Dragon's Teeth. Thousands of concrete pyramids still stretch across the German countryside. Obstacles from 90 to 120 centimeters high were designed to stop tanks during the Second World War and were called the Siegfried Line, West Wall. To be honest, these fortifications impress me even more than military vehicles and weapons. It is exactly here that you understand the scale of the war, which makes you shiver. In France, a huge quarry hides an underground cemetery of military trucks that belonged to the Nazis and NATO. These 7-meter iron giants now stand abandoned in tunnels and are falling apart. A typical embodiment of the winged phrase, "Thus passes worldly glory." Former might has turned into a heap of scrap metal. And now let's move to Budapest, where the Istvántelek train graveyard is located. A space of 20,000 square meters holds 89 locomotives, including the legendary Hungarian steam locomotives of the MAV 424 class, with double smokestacks and superheated steam, nicknamed Buffalo and Nurmi. Today they serve as a reminder of the golden age of railways in Hungary. Inside a rock on the border of Croatia and Bosnia lies the largest abandoned underground airbase. It consists of 3.5 kilometers of tunnels protected by hundreds of armored doors. During the war, a squadron of MiG-21 fighters was based there, and in 1992, retreating troops dropped 56 tons of explosives into the storage areas. Today, the tunnels are still mined, and this is not the best place for historical research. You are looking at military aircraft worth millions of dollars, found at the abandoned Predonac airfield in the English county of Cornwall. The Harrier jump jet, the legendary British attack aircraft, and Sea King helicopters stand on runways that were used in coastal operations during the Second World War. Now, a Royal Navy firefighter training school is located here, and the auxiliary airfield has become a graveyard of aviation equipment. A testament to how the Nazis sought to own the whole world is the ruins of Hitler's Atlantic Wall. This is 5,000 kilometers of a grand system of coastal fortifications built from 17 million cubic meters of concrete. Numerous bunkers, casemates, and anti-tank obstacles stretched along the coast from Cape Nordkap to the Pyrenees. They were designed to prevent an Allied invasion. A Soviet military tractor from the Second World War was pulled from the Volga 80 years after it went to the bottom in December 1941 during a fascist air raid. The T-20 Komsomolets, a tracked semi-armored artillery tractor developed in late 1936, could bring a gun with ammunition, deliver soldiers to positions or the wounded to the rear, and even support defense with machine gun fire. A total of 7,780 such machines were produced. To lift it from an 8-meter depth, specialists worked literally blind. This Soviet tank weighing 45 tons is a treasure for history because it was found intact. The legendary heavy tank of the Great Patriotic War, the KV-1, named after Kliment Voroshilov, was found sunken. It fell through the ice during the breaking of the Siege of Leningrad in 1943, loaded with mines and ammunition. The Soviet light tank T-70, armed with a 45mm gun, was also freed from a long-term swamp captivity. Its 9-ton hull was surprisingly well preserved. In total, more than 8,200 such tanks were produced in 1942 to 1943. Using satellite images, researchers discovered abandoned tanks standing in the middle of the desert. By whom were they left and forgotten? Now, they are slowly being covered by sand. The Second World War truly captured almost all countries. For example, on the Pacific Front and in Asia, several key battles took place that changed the course of the war. As you understand, the theater of operations there unfolded mainly in jungles. The main battles were fought by the Allies against Japan. This American tank, flipped upside down, was found exactly where it was knocked out during a brutal battle of 1944. And these guys dug up a depot of ammunition belts for the German MG-34 machine gun from the Second World War. In total, the storage contained 250 belts for the iconic machine gun. Why not an exhibit for a military museum? And how about accidentally stumbling upon a hidden fortress or a storage of dangerous shells? This underground depot containing more than 45,500 units of ammunition and mines was simply buried in the ground and waited for its moment at a depth of 3 meters. Dutch metal detectorists found a German steel helmet type M42 of the 1942 pattern. It lay on the site of a former battlefield of the Western Front. Despite spending 63 years underground, a faded Luftwaffe emblem, the Air Force of Nazi Germany, surfaced on it, and the original gray-blue paint and identification markings also showed through. Agree, this does not look like typical backyard decor. Someone discovered an open-air display where dozens of authentic Second World War soldier helmets from different countries were presented. German, Soviet, American, British helmets are arranged like a memorial. I wonder who assembled this collection. Share in the comments if you know. Forget ordinary aviation museums. This explorer stumbled upon an abandoned graveyard of military equipment where a German aircraft can be seen having landed on a tank. Massive relics were gathered here in 2007 and placed as a kind of installation. How often do you manage to find an intact artillery piece from 2 world wars? And how much work does it take to dig it out? Here, for example, is a Schneider 155mm howitzer. This gun belonged to a series of French heavy field howitzers that were actively used in the First and Second World Wars. And after 8 decades spent underground, it again amazes the imagination. The weight of the gun was 3,300 kilograms. It fired 45-kilogram shells with a range of up to 9.3 kilometers. In 1939, the Schneider howitzer was the only achievement of heavy artillery of such power. And modern guns of the same caliber can fire a regular shell at a distance from 25 kilometers, and a special one, up to 40 kilometers. An ordinary diving session turned into a serious police investigation after an AK-47 Kalashnikov assault rifle was raised from the river bottom. This is the first mass-produced model of the legendary Soviet automatic weapon developed by Mikhail Kalashnikov in 1947 and adopted for service in 1949. Divers also recovered a bag with mysterious evidence. A military depot sleeping behind a fence on forgotten territory. An explorer discovered it during an expedition. This storage can be called a museum of Second World War ammunition. It contained a collection of valuable vintage weapons and dilapidated structures. And now wild bees have settled there. Nature slowly erases the military site from memory, healing the wounds of war. nature takes over everything, including unexploded ordnance. Hungarian explorers found a Second World War bomb that snagged on a tree trunk and spent 80 years like that. The German Flak 36/37 88mm anti-aircraft gun, the famous anti-aircraft and anti-tank gun of the Second World War. It was found abandoned by Yugoslav troops in an almost working condition. Now the artifact is being restored to demonstrate the versatility of this legendary weapon. Another similar gun was found by a visitor in an untouched area of a Croatian national park. A German Flak 88mm gun still controls the Adriatic Sea from its original firing position. By the way, this battery remained in active military service up until the 1990s. Researchers descended into one of 6 abandoned mines and discovered a depot of Titan I missiles with a nuclear warhead. It turned out that from 1960 to 1965, the first American intercontinental ballistic missiles were stationed in this underground fortress. Now the storage is completely abandoned and passes from one private owner to another. People accidentally discovered fragments of a downed missile worth $3 million. Nearby, Russian military equipment and dry rations were also chaotically abandoned. Nummer 1. A patrol officer shouted, "Bomb on the beach!" when a mysterious object washed ashore in Florida. The discovery that caused panic turned out to be a U.S. Air Force training drone shot down 2 months earlier. In the capital of Serbia, builders discovered a huge Second World War bomb, weighing 1 ton, resting at a depth of 6 meters, right under city streets. Just imagine that under your home, 620 kilograms of explosives are sleeping. This caused an immediate evacuation for residents of the area. The bomb was extracted and safely buried. An incredibly lucky coincidence that discovering the bomb during construction did not lead to its detonation. Not far from London, authorities found and hurried to neutralize a huge 500-kilogram Second World War bomb. The dangerous relic was discovered in the Thames. It was washed onto the shore. Imagine a stadium standing on a powder keg. That is roughly what happened when about 10,000 Second World War combat artillery shells were found right under a football field in North Macedonia during repair work. Russian authorities discovered an ammunition storage. You could say they struck a gold mine. It contained 36 kilograms of explosives and 100 firearms. 15,000 rounds prepared for a large-scale conflict in the criminal world. In Cambodia, fishermen reported a strange find in a river. This prompted authorities to send divers there, who confirmed the dangerous discovery. An American Mk-80 series aerial bomb, weighing 227 kilograms, fell into the Mekong River in 1969 and lay there since the Vietnam War. It was carefully raised using inflatable pontoons and neutralized. By the way, since the country suffered seriously from bombings, it was a fairly common find, and such ordnance still poses danger. In Vietnam, workers during excavations found a huge unexploded bomb weighing more than 860 kilograms, a drop in the ocean, considering that across the whole country since the war, there are still about 800 tons of ordnance in the ground, still polluting the environment. Not far from the Hong Kong harbor, builders discovered a 450-kilogram bomb from the Second World War era. It appeared only a few days after another identical bomb was defused on the same shore. Here is what divers discovered: a 2.6-meter German magnetic mine from the Second World War. GC-type mines to strike ships were dropped by parachute, and each was equipped with a deadly charge of 700 kilograms of explosives. Decades spent in salt water made the explosion during disposal surprisingly weak. A morning walk turned into an emergency when a civilian found 2 grenades. A follow-up search uncovered an ammunition cache of more than 500 F1 grenades, legendary lemons, and 40 kilograms of TNT. All of it had lain untouched since 1943. But this was not the only case when the forest hid deadly surprises. Mushroom pickers in Belarus, instead of russellas and bullets, discovered a stockpile of 59 mines and 7 detonators, fuses, for hand grenades. There is still this creepy place in the jungle. An artillery fortress of Japanese guns has been guarding 100-meter ridges since 1944. The fortification is a labyrinth of tunnels with massive artillery positions. You can still find abandoned gas masks here. Everything is perfectly preserved. Located at a height of 120 meters in Hong Kong, this fortress consists of 7 main dugouts connected by trenches. The complex also included 6 auxiliary bunkers to house soldiers. The fort was built by the Japanese in 1943. Since Hong Kong was under occupation, it became the scene of brutal guerrilla warfare. For sabotage, the Eastern Anti-Japanese Guerrilla Army was formed, the Dongjiang Column. Bull Sand Fort is an imposing concrete sea fortress that rises 18 meters above the waves. It was built at the mouth of the Humber River during the Second World War to protect the largest estuary in England from German submarines. In a space 25 meters in diameter, 200 soldiers could be stationed. The construction required 40,000 tons of concrete, and building took so long that the war ended earlier. During the Second World War, Nazi Germany built large-scale bunkers in occupied territories of France, including along rivers. Look at this discovery. There were also defensive structures by the Marne River. We see the famous Eperlec bunker, which has been turned into a museum. Here, you can also see the light French Renault 35 tank. Even in a tropical paradise like sunny São Miguel in Luanda, military fortresses were equipped. Fort São Miguel is another secret military citadel. Here, besides old guns, you can see 140mm G2 howitzers and Second World War-era guns, and all positions are connected by tunnels and a system of bunkers. The fort has been abandoned since the 1960s, but a 120-year-old gun remains in perfect condition. The North Sea constantly throws deadly gifts from the Second World War onto the shore. Experts constantly find explosives, including, for example, this huge 400-kilogram torpedo. Each tide brings new dangers to the surface, making the hunt for echoes of war an endless and dangerous lottery. Many bunkers, rocket test boxes, ammunition depots. This is only the tip of the iceberg of what researchers discovered at an abandoned military plant. These steel machines rise straight out of the sea like alien warships. The Monsel sea forts are unique defensive structures, naval platforms on reinforced concrete supports. They were built in British waters starting in 1942 to protect against air raids. Each platform up to 49 meters high is equipped with anti-aircraft guns. During the war, they shot down 22 enemy aircraft and more than 30 V-1 flying bombs. This ghost ship rests abandoned in a Kentucky river, and it has seen a lot in its lifetime. The steamship USS Sachem SP-192, a luxurious steam yacht built in 1901, survived 2 world wars. During the First World War, the ship served as a patrol boat, then became Thomas Edison's experimental laboratory. In the Second World War, it sailed as a sonar vessel, then worked as a pleasure boat in New York. Sachem carried about 3 million people. And at the finale, it was present at the ceremony of the 100th anniversary of the Statue of Liberty under the leadership of Ronald Reagan. Well, and the ghost ship also appeared in a Madonna music video. Now it is an abandoned, rusting attraction in a Kentucky stream. The fact is that its last owner planned repairs, but during an unsuccessful transport along the Mississippi River, the ship got stuck in mud, and its owner went bankrupt. The water level dropped, and now it will remain here forever. In a swampy area of California, a minesweeper built in Canada in the 1950s was discovered. A 45-meter military ghost ship remained hidden for years, half a mile from the city reservoir. How could a sea mine end up in the mountains? Tourists discovered a spherical Second World War mine without detonators at a great height, far from the ocean. How it got here is a mystery. Imagine the legendary Il-2 attack aircraft, or flying tank, found in a frozen lake after 75 years. This aircraft was raised on August 22, 2018, from the bottom of Lake Kulonga in Murmansk Oblast, where it made an emergency landing in 1943. Surprisingly, the armored cockpit protected the pilot, who survived the war. On a hillside in Albania, there is a historical site, the Gjadar Military Airfield. Its unique location allowed military aircraft, after landing, to go into underground hangars. 600 meters of tunnels where dozens of Soviet and Chinese fighters were hidden. In eastern Greenland, like a sealed time capsule, the Bluey East 2 airbase still exists. This abandoned U.S. Second World War airbase, built in 1942, has a runway 1,500 meters long, and it must be said that it is located in one of the harshest places on Earth. Thousands of fuel drums and fragments of military equipment still litter this landscape. Now, Denmark and Greenland are financing the cleanup of the site, which will cost almost $30 million US. Visiting this place is restricted, since the infrastructure is actively being dismantled. Deep in the forest near Idaho Falls, in good condition, the wreckage of the American Douglas B-23 Dragon bomber was found, which crashed here in January 1943. All 8 crew members survived an emergency landing on a frozen lake and covered a distance of 65 kilometers through snow to escape. Those who found this relic were incredibly lucky. The legendary American single-seat fighter P-51 Mustang of the 1944 model was found in an old hangar where it stood for more than 80 years. This German Second World War aircraft sank near a Norwegian fjord in December 1942. The famous Heinkel 115, a 3-seat float bomber, torpedo bomber, and reconnaissance aircraft, had a wingspan of 22 meters and was capable of carrying up to 1,000 kilograms of bombs. It was found almost 70 years later and raised from the water to become a museum relic. Another legendary find in an uninhabited area, the Boeing B-29 Superfortress, an American heavy bomber developed in the early 1940s. The most advanced long-range aircraft of the Second World War crashed in 1948. If you know that the wingspan of this massive machine is 43 meters, you can imagine how much space its remains take up, scattered across the landscape. It is hard to believe, but what happened in the Canadian forests is a miracle. Nothing else. This is the crash site of the Canadian Canso bomber. Due to an engine failure on the night of February 10, 1945, it was forced to make a heroic emergency landing. The bomber flew on a mission with a crew of 12 people, was loaded with fuel and depth charges of 100 kilograms each. When the aircraft failed, it was falling at a speed of 300 meters per minute, then crashed into trees and broke apart. Thanks to the reaction of the pilot, who reduced speed to slow the descent, all 12 crew members survived the disaster. Melting ice in the Swiss Alps made it possible to discover the wreckage of a Douglas C-53 Sky Trooper aircraft that crashed in 1946. This specialized U.S. military transport aircraft, with a wingspan of 20 meters, was produced from October 1941 and was mainly intended to carry 28 passengers. In total, 380 were produced. And now, after 70 years, this aircraft finally emerged from its frozen grave. Found in the sands of Egypt, the British P-40 Kitty Hawk fighter remained untouched for 70 years. The desert air preserved the instruments in the cockpit and the guns of the 10-meter aircraft perfectly. Missing 40 years ago, an American military aircraft Lockheed of the rare 10 Electra model was found sunk deep in a remote swamp. Only 149 such aircraft were built in history. Its iconic fuselage was finally pulled from its flooded grave. The German single-seat, single-engine piston monoplane fighter Focke-Wulf, FW 190 was found in a forest near St. Petersburg, only in 1989. It crashed here in 1943. This is the only surviving example, with the original BMW 801 engine. Handley Page. Halifax, a British four-engine heavy bomber of the Second World War, remained in service until the end of the war. But in 1950 it crashed into rocks due to a navigation error. And so, years later, all four of its Bristol Hercules engines were found scattered across the mountains of Ireland. In the icy depths of waters, near a Norwegian fjord, rested a twin-engine float seaplane, the Heinkel 115 torpedo bomber. This 17-meter giant was surprisingly well preserved thanks to the cold water. On the seafloor, it looked like a ghostly silvery shadow. This Second World War dive bomber crashed 64 years ago and sank at a depth of 30 meters on the bottom of Lake Michigan. Now, raised from the water and covered with a crust of mussels and algae, the Douglas SBD-5 military aircraft, known as Dauntless, will undergo a full restoration. The war spread even to harsh territories where permafrost reigns. Scientists finally discovered a secret Nazi base in northeastern Svalbard, which they built in 1944. Abandoned in the cold desert, the fortress was a frozen scene, whose about 500 artifacts could tell a lot about the history of the war. In the forest, tourists stumbled upon a smashed military helicopter from whose cockpit trees were literally sprouting. How the mysterious wreckage got here, no one could explain. After 48 years spent underwater, the German submarine U-534 was raised from a depth of 62 meters. This sealed time capsule, 77 meters long, still holds 12 tons of explosives. What is a 50-meter submarine doing here, stuck in the bed of a dried-up river? This huge steel giant shocked those who found it, but it turned out to be only a hyper-realistic model. But why someone built it and then abandoned it here remains a mystery. Urban explorers discovered the legendary Humber Pig, a British lightly armored van truck weighing 6.5 tons and measuring 4.93 meters in length. It was widely used in the 1950s to ensure internal security in Northern Ireland, and then it ended up here, forever abandoned in the thicket. The next explorer discovered a Soviet-wheeled armored personnel carrier, BTR-60, in a remote forest. These ambitious machines with welded, watertight armor were used to transport motor rifle units and provide their fire support during the Cold War. Now they rest among the trees, and their upper hatches remain open, as if the crew left them and disappeared. Witnesses filmed their find on the beach. they discovered parts of a mysterious machine on the shore, which turned out to be wreckage of an American Cobra military helicopter. The Vietnam War-era machine had a unique design. The fuselage was narrow, and the main rotor shaft ran directly behind the seats of the pilot and gunner. Young people in Slovakia discovered something frightening in the forest: a fully functioning underground bunker with electricity working. This Cold War-era shelter, with reinforced walls, was disguised as ordinary forest litter. The most curious thing was that the wiring and materials were fresh. Apparently, it was not abandoned that long ago. The Cold War has passed, but its battlefields still remain in their places. This is a forgotten in Africa storage of military equipment, where abandoned Soviet tanks, BMP armored vehicles, and artillery guns lie ownerless on the Angolan expanses. Rusting machines are the only thing left of the large-scale 27-year armed conflict of 1975 to 2002, in which more than $4 billion were spent on military equipment. But what about stumbling upon a truly explosive arsenal? Soldiers discovered a huge depot with military gear. The weapons were still sealed and ready for action. What would you feel if you stumbled upon an abandoned military base where active bombs lie next to abandoned tanks? Explorers discovered exactly this: a helicopter that may have been used in Afghanistan, armored vehicles, and unexploded ordnance. The most incredible discoveries were a radar device with Cold War-era instruments and a Russian missile. This mysterious disc was under government guard, which gave rise to rumors that they were moving a crashed UFO. Could it have been true, and alien technologies have long been secretly studied? Do you believe in aliens from another world? During a forest walk, these guys found an object resembling a UFO, which had already been occupied by growing trees. Pretty crazy, but the ghosts of war still haunt us, don't they? History keeps surprising us. Share your favorite find in the comments. Write in the comments which moment scared or amazed you the most. And subscribe to Top Facts for the most incredible compilations of facts and videos from all over the internet. Thanks for watching, and right now click on one of our previous episodes.